Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. Here we are, Tyler Gould, another episode in the books for Richest Men in Town. This one features your guy, Joe Elkins. Talk to me about what our listeners can expect from our time together with Joe.
Man, you can kind of expect look, it's hard to pin down what you can expect with Joe Elkins, man. It was a lot of fun tonight. We had some really good discussions about transparency, about sharing some of your past with those that you love to kind of empower people to be better. And then, we just got some insight on his incredible story. And it was a fun night tonight. I mean, look, I hate to admit this all the time, but I find myself crying a lot during these episodes. And
but you see this one coming, right? You don't see this one coming.
Yeah,
I need to warn you. Right there, we finish strong and we finish emotionally, and Joe kind of lets us in, and I love where we go with Joe. And maybe we said this off the camera, but we should probably have a statement like the first thing we promise is no promises, right?
That's right.
Because we think we're going to go to some places, and then we start talking to people, and how ironic is that's kind of like the lives we study as we talk to these folks. They think they're going to go in somewhere. Joe thinks he's going to jump into the Navy to do something different for a little bit, and boom, he's a career Navy guy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I had this thought the other day. I'm like, how lucky are we that we get to talk to ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And then I'm listening to Joe tonight and I'm like, there's nothing ordinary about this guy. Right. I mean, and then it dawns on me, all of our past guests are extraordinary. And I hope that we can see ourselves in their lives as they talk about their journey. There's so much redemption and faith and hope that comes from hearing Joe talk about where he's been and how he's ended up where he is.
And I think that there's a fire that as we listen to guys like Joe talk a little bit about their lives, there's a fire that kind of lights up the magic of the moment that we might have tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like there's just this, like, I kind of want to wake up tomorrow and watch the sun come up and smile.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Like, and Joe really does, he takes us a little bit all over the world. And in that story, we're going to find connections. And I think our listeners are going to find places to connect and be like, I get where he's coming from. And when he's describing how he's feeling in this moment, I felt that. Or maybe as he's describing some things, I'm in that spot right now. And as Joe kind of lets you in on, hey, this is what helped me, maybe people will be able to feel that help. But I mean, it really is an edifying experience every Thursday, getting these wonderful people together.
Yeah, I mean, it's been my favorite night for a long time, and it hasn't disappointed yet, Mike. So,
but this one spirals, right? We start talking everything. We're with Joe this week. As we're talking to Joe this week, things from last week's episode is coming in
for sure,
and things from way back, right? Yeah. We go to Covey and seven habits and new eyes to see, and like we go into some cool spaces, and then we jump into some things that literally I have a moment where I'm making connections right in front of Joe. Joe says some things, and it's like, oh my goodness, thank you, because that helps me with a question that I actually came into the room with.
Yeah,
he doesn't know that, right? That's just how it works.
Right. I just thought it was great that, some of the, he gave me some insight tonight. We talked about sharing some things, removing debris and illusions, and Joe challenged me a little bit on some things tonight. So I appreciated it, and I'm looking forward to gathering some courage to continue down that path for me.
Yeah, this is the preamble. I'm not going to take that bait. You just dropped a couple of things there that I would love to jump into more, but for now, our time, we're about to launch into this episode with Joe Elkins. Tyler, thank you for making that connection. Joe, thank you for the way you showed up. I think as soon as we got off the call, I think I called him one hell of a lucky guy. And I think that our listeners will agree as they listen. As always, as we all listen, we need to be looking in our own lives, and we need to be looking for opportunities to do some extraordinary things with the things that Joe teaches us. So to our listeners, thank you for your support. Thank you for pulling up a chair. Enjoy your time with our friend, Joe Elkins, on The Richest Men in Town. So many things to talk about tonight. We've got Joe Elkins joining us, and I'm excited about that. So I believe that I'm trying to live with some intent.
Yeah.
We talk about intentionality all the time with our guests, right? The things that are tripping me up most on the Monk manual process are these dang intentionality questions.
So
things like I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. So
like I'm grateful for, I got that.
Right.
At the start of the day or at the night before, looking ahead to the next day, I'm finding that I'm awful at projecting and trying to envision the day I'm about to have.
It's hard.
It's hard. And it's like hard. A muscle that I have not worked out before.
Yeah.
Which is funny because we're all about the reflective life, right? We're all about, like, at least that's what, I mean, well, okay, this leads to the bigger aha that I had today.
Okay.
Right? I think we're day 8, maybe, of his 30-day do be.
Yeah.
Is it really do be?
Do be, dude. That's kind of cool.
Be do? I'm going to say be do.
I think you go either way. That's still a bebop kind of a deal, A
bebop. He uses this word disillusion.
Yeah.
Okay, Tyler, when I hear disillusion, I immediately think negative.
As do I.
I think disappointed. I think, okay, disillusioned. You had your dreams crushed, right?
Yeah.
You had your heart set on something. You walk away from an experience. You're disillusioned. No.
Yeah.
What is his name? We need to get his name in the show notes. Anyways, Monk Manual guy.
Open your book. Open your manual. Front page.
Yeah. Stephen Lawson. There we go. Stephen Lawson says this, and it blows my mind.
Lay it on me.
He's talking about shedding illusions. And he says, hey, when it comes to personal development, the amount of personal development in your life is going to be commensurate with the degree that you get rid of illusions in your life. He talks about disillusionment like a verb.
Yeah.
Strip yourself of illusions that you're carrying around about yourself, and you will actually be freeing up some space to grow. Come on.
I love it. I'm still sort of grappling with that and what that means for me right now. Do you know what I mean?
Grapple is a great word because for whatever reason, I don't want to A, discover them, and B, let them go.
Yeah, it's also, because when you sent me that text today about disillusionment, I was sort of already going down this road of identifying debris to get rid of. You know what I mean?
Old debris, right? Debris.
And I'm trying to compile a list.
Oof.
And it's funny because when I'm putting that list together, I find myself holding my pen over the paper not wanting to write down some of the things that I know are debris. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this thing is not important and I can get rid of this thing. But in the back of my head, I'm like, Tyler, you like that thing. Like, you know, why are you going to get rid of that thing? So
well, and how about
wrestle, man?
How about, I think when it comes to that illusion, like the illusion, and think of the conversation we had with Peter Carlson about identity.
Mm-hmm.
When you have illusions about who you are, you're basically taking a sledgehammer to a pillar. For example, case in point.
Yeah.
Mike Freeman, the script in here, I'm honest.
Okay. You're a pretty honest guy, dude.
Okay.
I want to hear where you're going now.
Tyler Gould, break this down for me.
Yeah.
Tonight,
mm-hmm.
Maxwell's 2-for-1 pizza night. We are addicted.
Okay.
I know Kelly's having a rough day. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go order some pizza. I can't quite remember the one she loved. So I go veggie.
Okay.
The one she loved is garlic chicken.
Oh man, that's pretty far off.
Yeah. She doesn't even know I'm having this conversation with you. She doesn't even know this. I get in the car, I go pick it up, all with the intent of like surprising her after a pretty crappy day.
Your heart's in the right place.
2 large pizzas. I got the sizes wrong. 2 large pizzas on the counter. She gets home and she's like, cracks open the first box and she's like, oh, are we trying something new tonight?
And you said, yes, we are.
I'm like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, this isn't the garlic chicken one that I love. What does honest Mike do?
He confesses to the crime.
They got the pizza wrong, honey. I'll call them.
Oh, geez. You dug a hole quick, man.
Why? Because am I afraid that I'm wrong? Like, am I afraid to just say, oh, shoot, I got the wrong. I threw them under the bus. I go outside. I call them. Hey, I need a medium garlic chicken pizza. What's the name? I give him the name. He's like, weren't you just here? I'm like, yeah, it's a long story, man. I ordered the wrong one. He's like, all right, that'll be 30 minutes. Right. So now I go back. I show up and luckily the dude's looking at me. He's like, you ordered the wrong thing? I'm like, yeah. He's like, no, it'll be $5. I'm like, sweet. So nice. I give him $5. I end up tipping him $5. So like it's $10 pizza but my wife thinks is complimentary because they messed up. Why? Why do I do that?
Okay.
If the script is Mike's honest, why am I dishonest with the person that I'm married to about messing up on a pizza order? But it was like knee-jerk reaction. It was like in the DNA, brother.
There was no thought to that. It just happened.
There was no thought to owning the fact that you ordered your wife's favorite pizza. You ordered the wrong one.
Well,
I got work to do.
Look, but here's the thing. we all have got work to do. I think that
am I going for that kind of a lie? Maybe not. But
here's the good news, Mike Freeman. You have that we're having these conversations, right? And you're throwing your ordeal tonight out on the table, you know? And we're talking about it. And the thing is, I think that's
a baby ordeal. I got bigger ordeals. I'm keeping those to myself. Okay. Right?
Yeah. We'll not discuss those on air, but yeah, I think that, having the conversation and I think half of the battle is listening to something like the doobie or right. The monk manual, seminars that we're going through, but
free course. We'll connect those in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Anyone can sign up and it's phenomenal. But I think that the willingness to be self-reflective and say, you know what, here's a spot where I'm not at my best is that's half the walk, man. That's half the walk. And I think that, now the maybe the hardest part of that is you being able to walk out after this show and say, Kelly, that pizza right? I thought your favorite was the veggie. I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, that's a harder deal, but I think that's going to be part of it. And knowing you, Mike Freeman, you're gonna walk out there and confess to a garlic chicken veggie fiasco.
It is going to go down. It is going to go down.
Right.
You know, and I think that one of the mantras of this program, Tyler, is that it's not about doing it right; it's about getting it right. Right. So maybe when the situation presents itself, maybe we don't crush it, but in the end, we get it right.
Yeah, I think sometimes we learn what the right thing is after we've made that critical decision where we say, shoot, that wasn't solid, you know.
Well, shout out to the missionaries. We had the missionaries over last night.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? When you've got a daughter across the country doing what they're doing and they reach out and say, hey, can we come over and share a message with you? It's like, absolutely. So they come over and they said, hey, we're going to challenge you, Freeman family. Can you pray for something specific over the next week or so? And we said, sure, fire away. I'm a sucker for missionary challenges, right? I'm all about it. And they said, we want you to pray for the courage to respond when the missionary opportunity presents itself.
I like that.
So not to pray for the missionary opportunity. Those are going to happen, Brother Freeman. Pray that you'll have the courage to respond when the opportunity does present itself. And as you do that, Brother Freeman and Freeman family, I will promise you three things. I love this, right? Invite, promise. Number one, you'll have the opportunity. Number two, the Holy Ghost will prompt you to do or say what is needed in that situation. And number three, you will have the courage to follow that prompting word for word. That you won't waver, that you won't be like, you know, I think of you and your friends or your coworkers, right? And that's like one of my favorite RMIT stories. But when you're like, nah, I don't drink, right? And
that's some good reasons, man.
And
they weren't right, but they were good.
And then you come back and it's like, hold up, this is why, you know. And I think that courage to do what the situation requires you to do is it's a cool thing to be praying for as a family, right?
It is a cool thing.
We'll balk at it.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing. I think that, you know, sometimes, you know, we go through the process, right? We're always looking for that opportunity to do things, to be better. I mean, just people in general. I believe that in people in general, right? I mean, wherever you're at, you know, whatever situation you find yourself in, people generally are looking to try to be better. And the reality is that a lot of times, like me at work, right, making up whatever excuse I gave is not the best way to handle it, right? But the hope is that we learn from it. And I would say this for people that find themselves in a situation that they're not loving, and they find themselves making choices that aren't getting them to the place they want to be. Don't quit on that process of making choices and searching for the better choice, because we all shrink. We all turn the other way when the good thing is there at times, right? And if we gave up, that would be
what I love about something as simple as that invitation.
Yeah.
You know, so today doing some yard work, I had Sarah Hall in my ear, and just great. Last episode, great things really that she dropped from her amazing, rich life and cool experiences. But that we become what we behold.
Yeah.
We become the thing we think about. That's and right. As we pray for courage to respond to life situations correctly, when they do present themselves, we'll be ready, right? I think she talked about that London marathon, and she said it was a situation where preparation met opportunity.
Right.
Love that, right?
Yeah.
Why do we do the preparation? It's because, right? So we may be in a job that we're not crazy about. and we may be frustrated. Show up, prepare yourself so that when that door opens, you kick it in.
Right. No, I agree. And I guess, the thought, and I love that thought 100%. I totally agree with you. I think that there's a level of patience that's required with ourselves, right? Where we have to be willing to be, we talk about being quick to forgive others. Sometimes we got to be quick to forgive ourselves, like I didn't seize on that opportunity, but tomorrow's a new day, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to rise up.
Monk Manual is opening up my eyes and is working out that anticipation muscle. Anticipate how your day is going to go, and what are you looking forward to? And it's that reflection piece, like we've talked about. I've been awful at reflecting at the end of the day. Love that.
Yeah.
Where did I feel unrest?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, those two questions, what am I looking forward to, and where did I feel unrest, are two of the hardest questions for me. Not because I didn't feel unrest, but maybe sometimes there's a fear of being honest with myself right there,
Okay, so that gets into that disillusionment, right?
Yeah.
It's you in a book.
Yeah.
Why are we hovering with that pen over the page when it's you in a book, in a room, quiet, all by yourself?
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes, it really is. It's an interesting question. Why do we not even shield others, but it's almost like we're trying to shield ourselves from who we really are. So that's one of the reasons I'm really enjoying my time in the Monk Manual, is because it's forcing me to be transparent with me, And when I write something down that I feel is disingenuous, Mike, there are spots in my book that have those things crossed out and the right thing written next to it. It's just how it's gone, So it's an interesting
I love
process.
That. I love it. Hey, can I share really quick? I know we've got Joe coming, but I just want to thank you. Several episodes ago, I don't know the number, but it was just you and I, and we were talking about forgiveness, and we were just talking about doing some of that work. And I think when we walk with integrity, the road rises to our feet. And as we're trying to do the right thing, and as we're trying to make things right, opportunities will present itself. And I had an amazing opportunity this week to sit down and have lunch with someone. And we'll leave it at that. But it was 100% fruition of that conversation with you the other day, of like, hey, are there people out there that we maybe just did wrong? Or are there people out there that maybe think we did them wrong, right? Or maybe there's some misconceptions, or there's some things. And I can tell you, it really is as easy as an intentional conversation over lunch.
Yeah.
Because the second I stepped into that space with that intentionality of going there with that individual, not nipping around it, but going in, the second that the conversation allowed that topic to come up, it flowed. It flowed like that DNC 121. Without compulsory means, it will flow forever.
I love
it.
When
we're doing the things God wants us to do, there's a flow. And it's not forced.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And I thought of you. I thought of that episode. And I thought, what else is out there? Who else? Right.
I love it, man. Doing work. That's what it's all about, right?
It is doing work.
Doing work. Well, speaking of doing work, we've got a friend tonight coming on, Joe Elkins. He's going to join us, and I'm excited, man. This is a guy who is he's just I joked with you the other day. I said he's kind of like a philosopher, man. He's got all these ideas and thoughts that he's really passionate about, and I'm looking forward to bringing him on tonight. And I want to get his thoughts on our discussion about being transparent with ourselves and making some changes. So should we kick the door open or what?
Let's kick it in.
All right, let's do it, man. Joe
Elkins.
Uh-oh.
Looking like $1 million, man. You weren't kidding about cleaning up and looking right, man. Jeez.
Good.
It was about time.
I'm having some beard envy there, brother. That's a good looking beard.
It's kind of funny. I got a haircut today now, and the barber that I've been going to a couple times now, just down the street. I mean, he has an epic beard. I mean, it is just one of those. I think they call them ducktail beards, where it just comes out a little bit, and it looks nice. Leonidas 300, ring a bell?
That's pretty good, man. Nice. I have major beard envy. I if I started it, it would just my nickname Patches might emerge. So
well, you can always take some from the top and get some glue, and
yeah,
might make I mean, your water will taste different, but
yeah, that's right. Well, hey, we're excited to have you on with us tonight. And I wanted to, before we dive into anything, I wanted to loop you into a conversation that Mike and I were having prior to you joining. So
sure.
So a while ago, Joe, a couple months ago, I stumbled across, or I was turned on to this item called the Monk Manual. Now, we could talk about this later. I'll give you the details later. Basically a journal that asks some probing questions of you every day of what you're grateful for, what you're doing, and with your life, what you're looking forward to, those kind of things.
Kind of like almost like a devotional thing where it gives you a special thought for the day or something to ponder.
Yeah, it's forcing you to sort of write the narrative, though, of what that day is going to look like. And one of the things that there's two questions that it asks in that book that I've struggled with. One is, what are you looking forward to? So this is a daily question. What are you looking forward to for that day, right? And the second is, where did you feel unrest the day? So the idea is, the beginning of the day, you kind of plan out your day, and at the end of the day, you reflect on what your day was, right? And I was telling Mike that there's been times where I have gone to write things in my book, and I've held my pen over the paper and thought, do I really want to write that and let someone else read this at some point? Or do I self-edit this, right? And so we're just having this discussion. Why is it that we feel like we have to protect maybe others, but maybe protect ourselves? I was telling Mike, I think I don't write it because I don't want to read that thing about me. I don't know that I want to look at that.
So Joe, there is no one in the room when we're doing these things, right? It's not part of the program to share it with your wife or to circle your kids. It's you and a piece of paper. But I'm right with Tyler. There's some places where it's like, and then he gets into this idea of like disillusionment and like shedding the illusions we have about ourselves. But I think that's why the pen hovers over that paper. It's like, we don't want to let those things go. I don't know. We're curious to know what you think about that ordeal. That
we want you to cure us of our ills, Joe. Come on.
Cure us of your ills. Well, that hesitation, it's a step towards vulnerability. It's putting a mirror in front of yourself, essentially, and really speaking to your unfiltered thoughts. And that's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's scary. And perhaps like you were saying, Tyler, you're protecting people around you, maybe your posterity that might read it in the past, but it's protecting yourself from their reactions. But as well as yourself, and maybe you don't want to admit some things that you know to be true. But what are you denying yourself when you do that?
100. I love that. I love that question. And I'm going to, because I was telling Mike, there's been days when I'm doing my journal and I come to that point and I've written something down and then I've scratched that out and written the real thing down next to it. Right. Because it's like, that question is like, it's just me in this dang book. Like, why don't I just write it down, man? And the thought for me is, when I look at it, and I'm not talking about anything like, right. I mean, this is like, how can I be more intentional? How can I show more compassion? How can I, all of these thoughts, like, how can I be a better dad? Like, I yelled at my kid the other night, right? Like, how do I, What do I have to do to move forward and be better? And I think that it does, but at the end of the day, it does a body good, at least me, to look at that and say, yeah, that's me. And that's something I gotta be willing to face or fix or adjust.
I would add to that and say it's not only is it cathartic to actually read it and expose it for what it is, but to come back to it and see who you were, and maybe actually see if you progressed in a direction that you wanted, and if not, there's some course correction that can still be had. I mean,
I love that.
That kind of reminds me of that Covey quote that you love, right? Like when he gets into it and he's real and he says, hey, just so you know, I struggle with these things.
Yeah, right.
But the reflection of it gives me new eyes, and I come back around and it's like, oh, it's a new journey. I got goosebumps, Joe. I'm just thinking about that process. But I love the question, what are you denying yourself? Because none of that happens if you put a lie down on that piece of paper.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about that. Was it the proverb that no one goes into the same river twice? You could be crossing it, several times a day, but the essence that's what's in that river is completely different. It's downstream several miles and hopefully in the ocean.
Yeah. I love the idea of looking back, like you said, maybe it's this opportunity for self-reflection, right? To look back and sort of self-measure, like, okay, how have I progressed? How have I changed? And you're right. Maybe I haven't. Maybe, you look at that 90 days down the road and you go, dude, I'm still that guy right there. Like,
so Tyler, can I just throw something out there really quick?
Yeah.
And again, I'm a Spanish teacher, right? So I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a philosopher, but does it wig you out at all that every Thursday we're talking to people, and sometimes we talk and maybe we're not comfortable with our inability to walk that talk sometimes, right? I don't know. I mean, I think we're pretty open and honest, like, hey guys, we don't have this figured out.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes as we talk about that identity, and it's like, well, Mike Freeman has to have a good marriage because Mike Freeman spends every Thursday talking to people about the rich life, right? And the rich life is a good marriage. And so I think it's just important that we acknowledge to everybody listening right here, right now, that we're not presenting something. We're not presenting something fake. We're not presenting something polished, right? This is as rough.
I mean, we can all agree that a rich life is riddled with errors, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it all depends on how you define rich, but I think for the purposes of this podcast, it is nothing to do with monetary funds. It has everything to do with who we are. Yeah. Well, and that's a good point, Mike. Tyler's talking about like these journals and who we are in that discussion, but I mentioned in a pregame show or a couple of days ago that we just recently moved. So when you move, you have a wonderful. It's almost like Christmas. You get to go open up boxes and see what kind of goodies and treasures are in there. And oh my gosh, I found some journals from high school. So.
Ooh, that's
so
good
3 years
stuff.
ago, I wrote this down. No, almost, almost 30 years. Don't tell my wife. But yeah, and the thing about those journals is I know a lot of the stuff. I remember a lot of the stuff that I put in those journals, and a lot of those things I'm not too terribly proud of. In retrospect, and not exactly the words, but everything behind it, and that's actually and to think about that time in my life and to go forward, where I am right now, I've changed quite a bit. Self-reflection was actually a topic of my last paper in college, but who knows? Maybe that'll come up later on. But looking back, I think is important. it gives us a guide of where we are currently and where we possibly need to be or need to go.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking to you for a little bit, Joe, and I don't want to hit the fillet in the first 10 minutes, but like,
of course, vegetables,
that change, that kid from those journals to the man that is here on this call now, what would you pin that change to? Because I know a lot of folks who I went to high school with who maybe would feel pretty connected to the guy that was in those 25-year-old, 30-year-old journals reflecting back, right? Okay. I was listening to some previous episodes a little while ago, and Tyler and I were trying to put a figure on how many people in this world, on this planet, are actually trying to be better, and I think that's an interesting question. So as you look at the kid you were, what about this life has put you where you are right now?
Wow. Well, I would say the journey, definitely the journey with the rough start. I had good foundations, but, deviated a little bit my own way, but the journey that it took to get here, I think was rewarding, as difficult it was at times. And choices that were made that were not really consistent with the person I am right now. But I think they were necessary in order to get me to where I am.
Yeah, I love that thought, because I think that's probably a hard perspective too, right? Because I've talked to people before who have gone through some tough things and they're stuck on that tough thing, right? It's become the definition of who they are. You know what I mean? And without sort of embracing the idea that, hey, we can move forward and we can change, and we can, every day is a new day, right? I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like
I love the irony of Joe standing where he is right now, talking, I am the person who I am because I'm not the person who I was.
Yeah.
Like, think about that, right? Like, I am this person because I was inconsistent with this person at one time.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to learning about that journey. I love that idea, right?
I think we can all relate to that, right? If we're honest with ourselves, we're looking back on the journey going, yeah, this wasn't stellar. This wasn't great, but here I am now. And because of those things, I've learned some things that are going to keep me maybe better grounded moving forward. Right. I mean, if we look at them in the way they're intended to be looked at, hopefully we're not looking at them and celebrating those moments, or we're not looking at them and saying, gosh, that's me and I can't do anything different.
Well, it's like that adage, right? I walk down the road, I turn and I fall in a pothole. The next time I turn down that road, I go around the pothole. And as Tyler was alluding to, there's some people that are stuck in that hole.
Yeah.
It's like,
I for one would want to fix the hole, but anyway, let me throw this at you. I don't want to say curveball, but a different perspective. The choices that you've made in your life. I mean, consider where you are right now, and knowing that the choices that along the way that got you to where you are, the good and the bad, would you change anything?
Yeah, that's always an interesting thought, because I do feel like, all of these things will be for your good, right? You've made some tough, not great choices, but great lessons were learned. Oh, yeah. I think maybe there's the thought sometimes that I wish I didn't have to learn it that way, right? It would have been nice to have been dialed in and be able to learn it a different way, but no, I embrace the journey. And look, I'm grateful for the people that have been in my life even in those times where I wasn't at my best, because I learned something from those situations. So,
and what do you do with that knowledge? Do you hold on to it to yourself, or those lessons that you learned? Do you hold on to it to yourself, or do you try to pass it on?
And how do you pass it on? Do you pass it on good, bad, ugly? Like, hey kids, here's my journal, or do you, you put some?
Here's some light reading tonight. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's appropriate for the age of your audience, but
I think I love that question though, because I think that, I think I'm pretty honest with my kids, and I'm honest with the things where I've been and the journey I've been on. Do I edit some things for age appropriateness? Sure. Maybe I edit some of that, but I'm pretty honest about it. When I was a kid growing up, and we talked a little bit about this the other day, but, my dad, never talked about his choices or how they impacted him, or, and obviously different generation, right? In a different mindset, but I would have loved to have learned from his mistakes rather than have to forge the path myself and learn some of those on my own, you know what I mean? So I think that's sort of been my philosophy with my own kids is, I'm being honest with them. I'll tell them when, I was in a situation and I didn't make the right choice. And here's where it stung me, and, so I don't know. What's your thought on that, Joe?
Well, I think, age, with my teenage son, I've been very, very grateful to be blessed with him and just how he's handled the adversity that he's witnessed in his life already. And we have a really good relationship. I'm so happy about that. And we're able to share and be open. And when it comes to those either things in my past or things I've experienced, I really have, and it's the hard stuff. I really have to think about it and go, okay, this might not be the right time, son, to talk about this, but in the future, I don't want to scare you. And let me put it to you this way. I took him to the gun range. Gosh, he was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And he wanted to try a pistol. And I go, son, I want you to be able to do this. I want you. I think it's great. You've shown that you're safe in handling, this other weapon, this other rifle. But put your hand up to mine. So at the time, he couldn't get there. He wasn't there yet. I go, that's the only reason why, son. That's the only reason why. Just not there yet. So when it comes to the hard things, when he's ready,
there's a time and a place.
There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
Well, I love that too. I'm thinking of an excerpt from the book Corrie ten Boom's The Hiding Place.
Sounds familiar.
The dad is a watchmaker, and this is
that's great. You make faces all day long.
Yeah.
This is good job.
Man, you've been holding on to that one for a long time.
Yeah. This is during Nazi Germany, and they're in Holland and they're Christians, and she's growing up and she hears some playground talk, and she comes home to the family and asks dad and uses some of the words that she heard on the playground. And the dad said, hey, let's talk about that. Can you grab that bucket of parts over there and bring it over to me? And she went to pick it up and it was too heavy. And she came and said, sorry, Dad, I couldn't bring that over because it was too heavy. And he used that as a teaching moment and said, the words you just said are kind of like that bucket. They're really heavy. And I think when you're older and you're going to be able to carry that, we can talk about that in a way that'll make more sense.
I like that.
Nice.
I was like highlighting that, right? Like I'm going to use that when it comes to, because it really is. It's just about growth and maturity, right? I mean, it's not a knock on your son where he's at right now. He's doing the things you want him to do. He's on course to be where you want him to be. there's just some growth and there's some development that needs to happen in order for him to take that step.
Yeah, well, he's growing at an alarming rate. I mean, I'm looking at him going through his teenage years, and granted, this year he's kind of lost in social development. However, there's this thing called the interwebs that he's been able to carry on some relationships, and the great thing about it is he shares a lot of the things with me. But I have to keep in mind, what is he not sharing with me? And, so as a parent, you kind of wonder, but at that age, he's at that age where he's testing out his independence. You got to give him that space within reason. And at the same time, we can talk a little bit more adultish stuff. If he wants to talk about my choices, I'm more inclined to share them. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking, and I go, "Yeah, you've gone through a stage in your life without making some of the mistakes I made. So I'm happy with that."
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I always qualify anytime I have conversations with my kids about these two things or about these things in a couple of ways. First, I let them know that charity, pure love of Christ, does not take joy in past transgressions. So as I'm sharing these things, let's do this in a charitable way so that we can understand that there was some trauma and there were some things that had to be cleaned up. And It's wonderful because I can tell you in that cleanup process that I gain a testimony of sacred things. But I also qualify them by saying you can know sacred things without making the mistake.
Yeah,
I don't want them thinking, in order to know what dad knows, I got to go out and make some mistakes. The mistakes are going to happen.
Right.
We don't have to seek them as some kind of prodigal son, right? Because a lot of people take detours that they can't afford and they don't come back.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So as long as my kids understand that, and I'm not reveling in a past life, right? I'm not looking back on that longingly. It's a thing. It's a thing that there are choices that were made. There was a journey and there were some things, but I don't regret any of those things because that was my journey, but their journey doesn't have to look like dad's.
Right. I mean, their journey is going to be theirs. Ours were ours. And it's just, things may be similar, and if they're similar, we can probably provide counsel. And that's part of us being parents, is being there, listening, doing our best to hold back our initial reactions. But I like how you put the charity aspect of it. We have to be charitable with our reaction, even with our children.
Yeah, I think it's Brad Wilcox, right? He's the lone branch, right? We were falling off a cliff. There was one branch there to save us, and that is Jesus Christ. We don't revel in the fall. We don't look back and think, that was really fun how I was plummeting to my death. We glory in the fact that there was one branch there.
Right. I think that the conversation is built around progression, right? The conversation is built around the ability to overcome some tough stuff, right? I mean, when I have those conversations with my kids, it's less about what I did and more about where I am and how I'm progressing. And the other part of that conversation is, and I'm still making mistakes, right? And I'm still trying to progress. Yeah. Now they're different mistakes, but there's still mistakes that are being made. And I hope that they're seeing that, oh, you know what? You can always progress. You can always overcome. You can always move forward. I mean, that's my hope, right? At the end of the day, that when they leave my house, they're going to be a mess anyway, right? They spend a lot of years with me. My hope is that they're going to get somewhere and go, you know what? Maybe one of the things that I picked up out of that whole chaotic scene was that when you mess up, it's not the end of the world, right?
Is that Moroni 6:9 maybe? As oft as they repented, they were forgiven.
Right. Right.
as off. There's no bottom there, kids.
There's no bottom.
There's no like, sorry, you punched that card too many times.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Or, even seeing if it's something that's really troubling them, it's like, okay, how long between transgressions? How long between? I mean, you can almost, even if it's something simple like maybe having a soda, or you're breaking the law, the word of wisdom, how long between those transgressions it happened? I'm like, okay, have you progressed? At least there, you can start over. You can always repent, or whatever you need to do in order to get right within yourself, and keep going.
Yeah, it's like that story, right? The gospel works from the inside out, not outside in. And a man who cusses a lot and finds Jesus cusses less and less and less until there's a day when that's not in his heart anymore and he doesn't do it.
Unless you're Jay Golden Smith.
Hey, before we get too far down this road, Tyler, tell me why you love this guy, Joe Elkins.
Well, so Joe and I have known each other for a while, but we haven't, our interactions have been limited. But I think Joe's, he's always got a thought. He's always got a deep thought. And I was telling Mike, I said, I think Joe's kind of like a philosopher, man. He's always got some at the ready. He wants to talk about. And I love that. It speaks to me that idea of just always learning and being hungry to learn. It's right up my alley. So, I would love just based on Joe's input from our Facebook Richest Men in Town. Oh yeah,
group,
absolutely.
I would love to see his bookshelf. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Joe shared with me his virtual bookshelf, right? One of your site, and it's impressive, Mike. You need to get in on that actually, because there's some nuggets in there that you gotta get a hold of. But yeah, I mean, I love everything about Joe and his family, and I've had a chance to get to know his son as well. And, obviously Joe speaks highly of his son, and rightfully so. So it's, I was looking forward to the opportunity to spend an extended amount of time together and just learn from each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I got them both fooled.
Well, Joe, we love Thursday nights because this gives us the opportunity to be better, and that's what this is about. So let's get into that journey, right? Let's lift up the hood a little bit, and we won't pull wires. We're not going to do any harm, but we do. We want to learn what has led to some of the lessons that you've learned. So if we could. What do you think, as a couple of guys with a little podcast called Richest Men in Town reach out to you and say, hey, come on board? What thought crosses your mind?
Was it back in January? I was online. I think it was in the morning, and Tyler was on there, and I was chatting him up and it talked about the whole premise. And I was very excited because It's a Wonderful Life, I think, is a very underappreciated movie. I'm sure you guys get this a lot. Actually, I know you guys get this a lot. Is, individuals that you typically have on the show, they don't see themselves as being particularly rich, even on the George Bailey side of the house. They see their lives as mediocre, normal, inconsequential. Just a normal individual trying to lead a life as best as they can, and not really see the value in that. And I'm like that. I'm like that. I mean, you've had some very amazing guests, and I'm happy to get to know a lot of these individuals and through this medium. And I'm happy to be here.
We're happy. We're happy that April 8th has come.
Yeah.
And we've got you on the show. We're excited.
Yeah, I am humbled to be here, to be specific.
Well, we appreciate you being here for sure. You've listened to a couple episodes and you've sort of heard a little bit of the format, but I want to start at the beginning with you, Joe, and kind of get an idea of, your background, growing up and influences and what was life like for you as a young man, and what were you learning from the people around you?
Okay, well, I'm from Long Beach, California, a little place outside of LA. My mother and father, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I grew up in that church as well, and have two older sisters and a younger brother. We grew up at the end of a cul-de-sac. We went to church on Sundays, and we had our fair share of church goings and participated in church in the primary, and just had a really good time. But let's see, had some close-knit friends that I had that I went to school with, Bo Breeze and Josh Sudak, that lived near each other. Josh Sudak lived a couple doors down, Bo right across the street. So we palled around together. And then, as we went into high school, kind of went to separate schools. And high school was a little bit different. Right around 12 years old, we were told that we were going to move from the house that I've known. So that was a big shock. And it was fairly interesting because, I'm going into puberty and adolescence and all those complicated changes that the body's going through. And now my entire universe is getting upset because new house, new friends. Luckily, we stayed within the same ward, so at least that was stable. But still, that disruption. I think actually just listening to the podcast with Troy Blanchard. Hey, Troy, talking about disruptions in his life.
Yeah. And
this was a big one for in my family because it kind of opened my eyes to childhood not being, I'd say, as wonderful as it was. There were some underlying difficulties there. I saw some friction develop in the home that made things kind of interesting for me. As
some cracks, right? Maybe some cracks.
Sure, some cracks. And when you're growing up in the church, you kind of are almost spoon fed a testimony through your parents and your other close influences. But I was seeing a difference in that. There some things, and I don't want to, I love my parents very dearly, and I know that they love me, but there are some issues there that were noticed, between me and my siblings, and it was challenging. I think it hurt my developing testimony to where I started doing other things. Maybe I liked the foundation, the warm feeling at home that I felt within the walls of church. When we moved, definitely exposed some cracks. I like how you put that, Mike. Yeah, it did definitely hurt my spiritual development because I'm looking at my parents who I love dearly, and they're supposed to emulate what I needed to follow. Yeah, unfortunately, they later on. Skipping ahead, let me go back to high school. I started doing things that would almost sabotage my spiritual development. Whether it be grades, not really caring about school, as ironic as that is on the person know who I am now. Not concentrating on the right things in school. Like I got heavy into conveniently philosophy. I was reading Nietzsche and Ayn Rand and Kierkegaard, and not really understanding it, mind you, at a young age. But I think having the philosophies of man be kind of my focus in that delicate time really put my spiritual development on the sideline. Saying, okay, well, this is interesting, and this kind of it makes me question everything that I'm learning in church, or at least everything that I've been taught. I'm thinking a different way.
Joe, can I stop
absolutely.
there and just ask a quick question? As you look back, was it open rebellion? Was it wandering? Was it kind of dwindling in unbelief? How would you characterize that journey, maybe into the philosophy of man and kind of away from church?
I would have to admit that it was open rebellion on what I could do at that point. did I, I read enough to go, do I really believe this? But it was most likely the resentment that I had at the marital example I was seeing at that time,
right,
that I took and wanted to sabotage, their supposed foundation. It wasn't the right thing to do, because
right. Our adversary is an opportunistic enemy.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And he sees a young man, and he sees some cracks in your faith and testimony, as you're looking around and seeing cracks. Imperfect people are all we've ever had, right? Imperfect parents are all we've ever had. But he comes in and he's opportunistic, and he says, hey, check these ideas out, right?
Right. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I was a bad individual. I really don't think I was a bad individual, where, these people that are trying to get into trouble. It's like I took the straight and narrow and just kind of went off to the side a little bit and followed parallel. But fast forward a little bit, graduated high school and, moved out, was living with my cousins for a little bit before I decided to go ahead and enlist in the Navy, which was great. Had a good time. My parents seemed pretty pleased with that. I surprised them, actually, because my grandfather, my paternal grandfather was in the Navy during the war. I'm actually named for one of my namesakes is his dad, who was in World War I and World War II. And so I wanted to keep that back, because the military service skipped a generation. I decided to enlist and had my grandfather take me to the recruiter, and we talked. And my parents didn't know until I was getting processing in. The person at MEPS, the entry processing station there in Los Angeles, says, hey, did your parents know what's going on? And I was 19. It's like, no, give them a call. So I gave them a call, and they were just, what? And they zipped up to LA to at least see me raise my hand and enlist and say the enlisted oath. And that was pretty neat. And so, but still, I was doing something that was, unorthodox. I wasn't going to school. I didn't, I did have a couple of jobs after high school, but I wanted to actually have a career and just, do something different. So the Navy took me to Japan first. Went to Yokosuka, and I remember I was there. I think I got there in November of, was it 1998? Going into the holiday season, it was my first time being away from home like that. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm sitting there in my barracks room. I know where things are in base. I'm in a foreign country, don't know the language. It's completely alien to me. I mean, it's not like going to Europe where you can kind of find your way around, but it's Japan where, they drive on the wrong side of the road. They have a language that is very different, very beautiful at the same time. Church was around. They had a branch there on base. And I was like, you know what? Let me go at least do something, because I'm sick and tired of being in my barracks room. So I found out when church was and went there, walked into sacrament meeting. I won't forget this. I think he was first counselor at the time. The first counselor of the branch, his wife came up to me, Sonya Nighting. I will never forget her. Comes and goes, I'm Sonya Nighting. And who are you? Yeah, you're coming to dinner with us tonight. And I'm like, what? Slow down. I want to tiptoe coming back to church, not just jump in or, get pushed in. But the Nightings were really awesome people. They're beautiful couple. They had beautiful kids, and it was really good seeing them. And then we had got to know some of the singles that were there. So it was like going home. That comfort, that familiarity that I was longing for, being homesick in a foreign country, went away, and that for me was very important. It brought me back home. I felt more secure in being so far away from what I knew.
So Joe, you mentioned you mentioned in high school kind of looking at these different thoughts and ideas, and it pulling you away from the church, or maybe not even pulling, but maybe that's not the right word, but making you think things differently, right? And look at things differently. And when did you recognize that as that? Was that during that time, or is that in reflection on what from where you're at now?
Well, delving into the I'll call it the philosophies of men. I think it gave me a different perspective. Instead of almost like an outside perspective, things spiritual. Yeah, to the point where I felt confident enough to question, or at least intellectually explore this whole thing that we call religion, this whole thing that we call the gospel. This character that is called Christ. And how important these collection of books say he is. And in high school, I think I was more focused on my rebellion to really recognize it for what it was. But in reflection, I could see that there was a difference.
I'm curious to know just the juxtaposition between religion, faith, and philosophy. What would you say to a person who questions the existence of capital T truth, right? In conversations that you might have with a coworker, somebody comes to you or challenges the idea that when we claim that we have a testimony of truth, what do you do? What would you say to opponents that would argue that doesn't exist?
Well, truth in that world, it can be subjective. It's very true. So, defining the terms, but a testimony, a witness of something, that's very personal. And if someone wants to challenge a testimony, to me, unless they have irrefutable facts to try and disrupt that, I think it's a futile effort for someone with a strong testimony. But truth, what do you mean by truth? My truth, your truth, or the facts? Are we talking about faith? So there's a litany of things to discover between a challenger. When we say it's true, when we testify, we're relying on our own witness. Whether are we doing that to convince others? Maybe so, but I know me for one, it's to honor our Heavenly Father. It's to honor the reason why I'm here, the reason why we're all here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the idea of faith and sort of reconciling those two thought processes, because I honestly don't know that I don't believe those are mutually exclusive. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that you can. I like to learn. You know what I mean? Like so I like to read those kind of things, but I think that there's definitely a delicate balance there though somewhere, and I think that when we're in a place, we allow ourselves to get to a place where maybe the faith portion of it becomes put on the back burner, then the other things can become sort of your guiding principles. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know that I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I think that when we're looking at those things, for me now, I when I'm reading different books or different philosophies, I sort of look through them through the lens of the gospel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think that almost like that gathering of all things under Christ.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, if you look at it through those lenses, it's hard to have a mutually exclusive list when we're talking about gathering all things under Christ, right? Under that head of eternal truth and his truth. And I just want to kind of highlight and maybe even do a little bit of a bird walk with something Joe just said, because Joe, before you came on, I was talking about missionaries coming into my home last night and challenging my family to pray for courage to be able to share our truth, right? And I'm feeling a little bit electric as you talked about why. Why do you share it? Do you share it to try to convince your neighbor? Do you try to share it to win the argument? Or do you share it to honor God for the gift that was given, right? Like if it's my truth and it's my witness born to me through an experience that I have with the Holy Ghost, that kind of sheds all the fear of sharing it. You're just honoring the gift that was given. Like, hey, this thing happened to me and I got to tell you about it. Right. And then you add to it the fact that you love the person you're sharing it with. What's the hang up, Freeman? Open your dang mouth and share out what you know. Right. And when you package it like that, it just makes a lot more sense. Right. Versus, oh, I'm trying to win in an academic discussion, or I'm trying to show how much I know of the Bible so they'll know I believe the Bible. No, like I know the Bible's true. I've had experiences with it. I know the Book of Mormon is true. I've had experiences with it. Can I share with you the experience that I've had? Because I love you. Done. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. That's an empowering thought. It's just like, hey, do it to honor the gift that was given. Do it to honor God, right? Because that's why you're here. It's a cool thought.
It's an interesting thought, because I think that you said, well, come on, Freeman, open your mouth and just share. I think there's the difficulty is, right, when we've taken the journey, right, or we've put in the work to discover something, okay, and we've got this discovery, and it's changed our lives, right? I've found this thing that has changed me. I am a totally different person because of it. And then I take that thing and I walk out to a group of people and I say, look at this thing that changed my life. And those people look at that thing and say, that's garbage, right? There's the reluctance, right? So that's that. I mean, I'm speaking for me, not for you.
No, but let's put this. So I'm going to make a connection. Stephen Mitchell shared a sermon with me, right? From a guy named Alistair Begg.
Yeah.
Imagine you're walking out on your curb and you walk by your kid's car and you see the kid's car. The kid's car is usually thrashed, right? Chick-fil-A wrappers, trash, old gym shorts. Like it's always a wreck. And you walk by the car and it's pristine and it's beautiful inside. You're probably going to go to your son in shock and be like, what happened to you? What's her name? Right? It's probably a girl. And he makes that analogy in connection with our walk and our faith with Jesus Christ. Our life was one way. It has changed because we know him. The way it has changed should be generating conversation in natural, normal ways with people that know us. I think the challenge is when the change happened in 1994 and you haven't done anything with it in 2021, right? Like, can we say, like Alma 5:26, right? You sang the song of redeeming love before. Can you feel so now? Like, what is he doing for you today? And can that be shared in natural, normal ways? Because if you're hanging on to something that happened in 1994, you haven't changed much, right?
Yeah, and I think the reverse of that is true as well, right? I think that there's, we can find ourselves in a position where we've, Joe, you talk about seeing cracks, right? And then kind of rebelling against that, right? We can find ourselves in a place that becomes our truth. Do you know what I mean? Like that becomes the defining thing, and again, right? We're 2021 and you talk to someone and they say, well, this thing happened in 1994. Well, what have you done to progress, to move forward, whatever that is, and get yourself in a new place, right?
When you see those cracks and you cauterize I love how you said discovery, right? Discovery is because you're curious, because you feel something. But when you have that experience and you see cracks or you see inconsistencies, you may cauterize that and you don't go down that journey anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility, but I don't think I was there yet because, deep down, I knew where I belonged, especially with the confirming experience of seeking out church when I needed it. I was lonely and I needed something to make me feel at home.
That
Joe,
homing,
let's talk
thing is
because I
powerful.
want to talk about that for a second, because I think that pull, right, is it's such a powerful thing, and I think a lot of times we don't recognize it for what it is. I'm not saying the three of us, right, but I'm saying people, right? We just don't. Sometimes we look at things and we say, I just kind of wandered into this place because it was, I needed something. But I love when we have those moments and we're removed from a little bit, and then we can look back and go, no, I didn't just wander off the street. You know what I mean? Like it was an intentional force pulling me to this thing.
Yeah.
And I love how you describe it, like walking in and saying it was like going home.
And can we call it?
Right.
Can we call it what it is? Right? Can we call it a miracle?
Yeah.
Can we say miracles happen all the time? And we say it's like, oh, that was kind of weird. I had this weird feeling like I wanted to. No, you probably had angels helping you. You probably had people helping you find home, right? Yeah. Like a salmon goes to the ocean and comes back right where they respond. It's like that sensing of like, I just felt like I was home, and that dormant faith or whatever. You weren't a bad guy. Your heart wasn't hardened.
Well, and right, it just bring all things to your remembrance, right? You walk in, boom, I'm home. Like that's what it is, right? I mean, I just love that, and I love the discovery of that. Like
or maybe it was Sister Nighting's lasagna, right? I don't know.
Sopapillas. She cooked sopapillas, and
I'm impressed that you remember that. Sister Nighting,
me too,
needs a shout out, man, for sure.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking more of a confirming, like we were talking about sharing. When you get excited and you're hesitating to go, and then when you shed that fear. After I went back home and really was getting back into activity, and I was excited about it. I had an opportunity to go back home on leave. And I met up with my old friend that I mentioned earlier, Bo, and he had been he was home from I think a year at Harvard, and so we met up. And I go, hey, I was telling him about how Japan was, and like, hey, I'm back at church, and he was kind of excited because he got baptized in a Christian denomination and everything like that. I'm like, oh, okay, well. I think I asked him, because I was so excited. I'm like, hey, when am I going to baptize you? And he goes, I'm already baptized, so no thanks. And then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then he went on to tell me, he goes, no, I looked into your faith and it's not true. And I'm like, that's interesting. He even said that he did the legwork and went up to Salt Lake City and went and toured Temple Square and just didn't find that it was true. And I'm like, okay, well, I love you very much. But it was kind of weird because I thought about it exactly when we were having this discussion. That person that was thinking, had been reading all these works of intellectuals, and that person didn't try to analyze what was going on. This disagreement between best friends, between really close friends. I was going, okay, he has his beliefs and it's not his time, but I think I got more out of it by sharing my excitement, by sharing, and I wasn't afraid, even though it was someone that I've known pretty much all my life. And with it's like it didn't register as a disappointment at all. I got a reward out of that, even though it wasn't the outcome that I was hoping.
I think there's something to be said for recognizing truth, right, and then for verbalizing that. I think there's I think it was Maxwell that said a testimony is found in the bearing of it, right? Maybe it was Maxwell, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, I think that when we're willing to have those conversations, those can solidify some things for us, even if they don't shake out how we maybe had hoped that they were going to shake out. I mean, you think about all of the conversations you've had with people over the course of your lifetime that have led to people, locking arms with you and walking through the doors of a church building. I mean, those are few and far between, right? But those conversations doesn't make those conversations any less valuable, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's, I feel at that moment I was doing my part.
Yeah.
And it's up to the Lord at that point.
Well, and some of that is let's rejoice with a good friend in Christ.
Yeah, that's it, right? Absolutely.
Can we rejoice that you're in a place and that he found a place and and Mike, you and I have had conversations on this show with people that we would call good friends that have very different beliefs than we do, and shoot, they make me better for their conviction and their beliefs. I mean, that's for certain. Yeah, I love that. So where have you ever, okay, I got to go choose your adventure. Have you ever thought, what if you didn't go to church that Christmas season in Japan?
I never thought about that, but
how quickly does the world around you change in 2021 if you didn't take that step into that building?
It's actually pretty difficult to think about because, we're social animals. And at that time I was needing something social that outside of the universe that was the barracks of the lower enlisted, and because that could be pretty chaotic at times. I just need to get out of there. But would I have fallen into that crowd and try to be a part of it? I don't think that was me at that point. That's a good question. I've never thought about that. How would
I just love it, and that's really at the heart of what we would call those hinge moments. Right.
Yeah.
Where everything turns, and it's so impossible to envision a different reality as we think about our life without those moments.
Yeah. And think about your life without those people, right? Like a Sister Knighting, because I think that it's interesting, right? Because you walk into a building and it's one thing to take that step and just go in, Joe, you said, hey, slow down. I just wanted to kind of ease into this, you know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Test the waters here.
Right. Yeah. It's one thing to kind of just put your toe in and sit in the back row and look, but it's a whole nother animal, I think, when there's that engagement. And so I think sometimes, we find ourselves in the right spot and then someone else is inspired to do something amazing, right? Which they don't recognize as amazing, which is walk over and invite you to have sopapillas at their home that night. You know what I mean? So, but it is amazing, right? I mean, we talk about this all the time, like those kind of things that are so innocuous that change the course of lives. And I'm not saying that her invitation or the Sopapillas changed your life, but I'm saying it probably.
I'm saying in 2021, we're talking about it.
We're talking about Sopapillas. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's those extraordinary, ordinary moments.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, I didn't think about that part of that hinge moment until we were talking, until it was brought up and we were conversating about it with Sister Knighting and Brother Knighting and the Sopapillas and the kids and everything. I never really thought about it.
Well, and in true richest men in town fashion, we'll throw that forward and understand that each of us are that sister. Yeah. Each of us are coming across people on our paths that might need some sopapillas, right? They might need that hand of friendship. They might need that, hey, how are you doing? They might need the visit where we just talk Masters golf and we're not even, right? We're not even breaking down true gospel principles. We're just being there because they came across our minds, right? Or it's a text from us, just letting them know that we see them and that they're important and that we understand that maybe they're going through something. Yeah, I think the other day I did a Tyler Gould. Literally, I called in my mind. I was like, Tyler would do this. I'm mowing my lawn. I'm thinking about someone. I shut the mower off. I grab my phone and shoot the person a text. Right? I'm just trying to get better at that.
Yeah. I love that.
I did something similar, or something similar happened to me a few weeks ago. I was thinking about a friend in the service that I know recently retired, because we were about the same, I guess, enlisted class, I guess you should say. We came in about the same time as getting time to retire. I was just thinking about him. All I was doing was just thinking about him, thinking about the good times we had through different training evolutions that we participated in, and just the good times. And then all of a sudden I was on Facebook, and I get a personal message. And I'm very particular on who I talk about on social media, or talk with on social media. If I don't know you, I may ask you, how do you know me? So there's some type of connection that I can recognize. But it was a name that I was familiar with, that was talking about the individual I was just thinking of. And it was the girlfriend of my shipmate. And she goes, "Hey, I've heard about you. I'm putting together a surprise retirement party for awesome. For Rod, and can you come?" And man, I haven't talked to this guy in probably 6-7 years. And but yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, count me in. And so I went, and had a ball. It was very, very touching. And he pulled me aside and said, I got your text, because I text kind of after saying that I was thinking about him. I just texted him, say, "Hey man, how you doing? This is me. If you don't remember, we served together at this command. But if this isn't you, I'm sorry to bother you." He pulls me aside at his retirement party. Goes, "Joe, I did get your text, and I'm glad that I'm really glad that you reached out. I have been having some issues, but I did need to hear from you, or from someone." And I was like, wow, that just kind of hit me.
Yeah.
I've things like that happen every now and again, but that one was powerful to me. And I'm glad I had that experience. And I'm glad that I was there for a guy. And
I think the quicker that can be instinctive, and we can stop thinking, was that the Holy Ghost? Was that my own thought? You know what? You're mowing a lawn and some guy comes across your brain. Go with it.
Right.
Own it.
And own it quick, because those things cool down fast.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And then the thought is, why did I want to kind of reach out to those? I don't remember what was going on there. I love the idea that, right, that the miracles are performed and the help that is given. Sometimes we're looking for this heavenly boom that's going to come, crack us over the head. But it's a lot of times it's a text message. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's just someone walking over there saw you standing on the side of the road that says, "Hey, how can I help out?"
Well, and as we're talking to Joe, and as we're thinking about people that we've talked to on this podcast and other episodes, I think one of the things that I've added in my prayers is, help me see what I'm missing.
I like
It's a powerful question.
Yeah.
Because we miss his hand. We miss the opportunities that are presented to make a difference. We miss the simple, extraordinary, ordinary moments. And as we pray to have eyes to see that, I think that's one of the things that I've learned in the last couple of months is, like, he'll help you see what you're missing as you ask for it.
Yeah, and I don't want to go all overbearing monk manual on you guys again, but
bring it. Come on.
This episode is brought to you by Monk Manual.
That's right. But there's a portion on the daily that asks you what you're grateful for. Now, in my mind, I sort of frame this as what it's really, where have I seen God's hand in my life? That's kind of where I'm looking at it from. So the challenge, Mike and Joe, for me has been not to write down the same thing every day, right? So I want to have 3 new things every single day. And let me tell you, I've had great amounts of pause in that section to dig deep, because we, sometimes we just step over the things that are miraculous, and we're just like, sometimes I'd think, man, I'm just good. Like, that was that. Like, I just nailed that, right? And I don't recognize it for what it is, But I like that idea of trying to have to force myself to find those things in my life, right, that are different. Like I could write down my wife and my kids every day. I'm grateful for them every day, but I want to expand that list and dig a little deeper.
There's a book out there. I don't know what it's called, but I remember hearing that it is thank you letters that a man wrote every day. He wrote a thank you card to people that he encountered throughout a year. So there's 365 thank you cards in this book. And he gave them to, it could have been the mailman. It could have been a neighbor. It could have been a cashier that he interacted with. But he wrote a thank you card every day for a year.
That's so richest men in town.
I love that, man. That's crazy. Like I would love to be that intentional, man.
Yeah, I don't recall. I heard about it years ago, and I have to admit a failure to act. I didn't step on trying to get that, and I can't remember it. Dang.
Oh, don't worry. We'll dig that thing up.
Oh, we got interns.
It'll be in the show notes at the end of this thing. So that's
awesome.
Good news.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Joe, walk us through the rest of the journey a little bit. Are you a career Navy guy?
Oh, well.
Right. So you're home from. I'm assuming you eventually come home from Japan. Sounds like you have a conversation with a friend. What is?
Well, there's a couple of things. Well, in Japan that I thought was pretty pivotal because I didn't know if I was going to make Navy a career. You know, I thought I was just going to be a one tour, one contract, go ahead and punch my ticket and get out, go to college, and that be that. I ended up meeting. Well, no, before that. Well, I ended up meeting my eldest son's mother there, at that same branch, and so good place and. We hit it off then, and we were married, and we were still in Japan. But a cool thing happened that I like this story just because it helped me kind of decide what I was going to do for a career. Is I was on a deployment. I was on the USS John McCain, and we were doing our Westpac. We're going to go do a tour up in the upper. We're going to transit all the way to the Arabian Gulf and do some time there and then come back. And which was pretty cool because I'm active in the church and every port visit, everyone knows who wants me to go with them because I'll get them back to the ship. I'm the designated sailor. And so, which, those, I could tell stories about that. And anyway, that's a totally different episode. I was able to go to the Hong Kong temple, which was really neat because I got to hear some things in that native language, and which was really beautiful. And the cool thing is, the guys I normally take out, or they want me to go with them, they're like, you know what, we need to give Elkins a time. So we went to the temple. They hung out in the grounds while I went inside for a little bit and came back, which was neat.
That's very
But
cool.
as we're doing this cruise, the ship planned to do what's called a Tiger Cruise, which at a port, if your family flies into this port, they can ride on the ship back to our home port. And we're going to be in Saipan, several months in advance. And you can invite a family member to meet us in Saipan and take the ship back to Yokosuka. And I was pretty excited about that. And then I knew my father couldn't make it, but maybe my grandpa, who was in the Navy in World War II, would. And he goes, yeah, I'd love to go, because he served in Tinian, which was another island, just a ferry ride away from Saipan. He decided he wanted to go. So I'm very excited. My leading petty officer pulled me aside. He goes, you know what, Elkins? Wouldn't it be cool? We were working, because I had no interest in getting like all these technical qualifications. I just want to do my job and go. I don't want to do anything extra, But he pulled me aside and goes, wouldn't it be cool to have your grandfather pin on your enlisted surface warfare specialist on your chest? Wouldn't that be neat? That's all I needed. I got to work. And I studied so hard for that test and that board, and in this qualification, you learn everything about the ship. And you are basically, once you're qualified, you understand the workings of the ship. So if there is something happens, you could be able to sit in that an empty seat, and with a little bit of refresher, be proficient enough to get the job done. So it's pretty important. And so you have to learn everything, and it's a long process. Like I said, I wasn't thinking about a career at that point. We get to Tinian, we get to Saipan. Cool moment here. I'm like, okay, cool. I gotta go rent a car, go to the airport on Tinian and pick up Grandpa. So, and it's at night, and Grandpa, he's in his mid-70s now, and by this time, and he traveled all this way across the Pacific to get on the ship. And so I'm at the airport. It's at night. I see him. Hey, Grandpa! I'm all excited and give him a big hug. I see some flashes on my peripheral, like camera flashes. And I look over, and there's my father. My father was there and surprised me.
Wow!
And that was amazing. That was amazing, because my father never joined the military, but back then there was the draft, and so you didn't really have to join. If they needed you, your number would come up.
Yeah.
But and it was pretty neat palling around Saipan with my grandfather and my dad, and I get to share with my dad everything that I've been doing on the ship. The entire ship, well, the entire upper echelon of the ship knew that my father was going to surprise me.
Wow.
We had I think it was like 20 or 30 family members, but that surprise was it. And I think it was right about my birthday. No, it was a couple of weeks after my birthday, because I spent my birthday in Australia, in port, studying for the test, which I got the qualification. And I think that really helped, having Grandpa pin that insignia on my chest is really what kind of drove me. Goes, okay, I could do a career, and I can do pretty well at this. And besides that, it's a job security. There's health, there's dental, there's 30 days paid vacation a year. And, but that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
What a cool experience to be able to have him come on the boat and take part of that, of sort of the launch of your career in the Navy. And you did, how long did you serve in the Navy, Joe?
Was it 20 years, 20 days? The military was a good life. Yeah, it was a good life.
Okay. I'm curious about the journey of faith just in life. Let's just talk in life in general, right? Because there's and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I mean, obviously we live, regardless of where you're at, there's distractions. There's things that are going to pull you in a lot of different directions. What does staying grounded and centered look like for you?
I would say for me, being active. I find, at least for me, when I can get complacent in all things, when I'm left stagnant and just sit there in my own wanderings, I guess you can call it. But for me, if I'm not actively engaged, I tend to drift, and that's something I've been working on, and continue to work on.
Yeah.
Whether it be reading scripture, saying prayers, the textbook cliche answers, but not only that, but being engaged in church, like whether it be through a calling or just making up something to do. Clean up the grounds or being involved with the missionaries.
Yeah.
Like, for example, to help keep the missionaries active, the missionaries that are in our ward have been coming over to my place in the mornings to safely exercise. And it's been fabulous having them there, and they bring a wonderful spirit into our home. And but they're not inside the home or outside.
Right.
Social distancing the whole bit.
Right.
But for me, being actively engaged is important.
I like that. I'm curious too, because you say that you use the word complacency, and Mike, I'm going to bounce this over to you, but you and I have talked about complacency, I think off and on for years, but what's your thought there on battling complacency?
I think of that premise of the Lord's wind, right? And I think of if I don't want to drift, then I must drive. I think that it's an either or, and I think that you're not. It's similar to where we're at with our faith. We're either growing or we're like a muscle, right? We're either atrophy or it's growth. And if it's growth, it's through stretch and break and work. And I think that when we look at that complacency, I think a lot of people stop driving and they wake up a decade down the road in a place that they never would have selected. Right.
Yeah.
But when we're letting life happen to us and we're going wherever the currents take us, the world is a noisy place and we can be taken to places that we would have never, ever selected as destinations. Whereas if we're actively saying, Lord, drive me, this is where I want to go, be careful with that, right? Because that will come in forms of trial, that'll come in forms of adversity, it'll come in forms of growth. And we'll be able to look back and we'll be able to say, because of these circumstances, I was allowed to grow and I'm in a place that the Lord wants me to be in, right? I'm in a place where God wants me to be in because I let him drive me.
Yeah. And I like Joe, I like your thought on the just being actively engaged, right? I mean, and Mike, you talk about if you're not driving, you're drifting, right? I mean, I think that idea of engagement is a big deal. I think too, that there's this, I do think that, and I love the idea that you have the missionaries coming over, you're working out with them, because I think when we're surrounding ourselves with the right people, putting ourselves in the right situations, right, it gives us an opportunity to be a little bit more, to stay on that track a little bit better.
Well, and if I could even go like total bird walk, as Joe is telling me about the missionaries, I hear that a lot. I've said it a lot. I'm grateful for the spirit that they bring into the room. And I'm like, what is that? And why do we say that? And what is different about it? Because it is different. But as baptized members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we've been confirmed members and we've been given the gift of the Holy Ghost as a constant companion. So what is the difference? And I think it's that consecration. I think it's that consecration that is different. And then the natural follow-up question is, what does that look like in our life? Where are we consecrating ourselves, our time, our talent, our resources? What are we doing to build up so that how great would it be? It's like, man, I was hanging out with Mike Freeman. That kind of felt different. That'd be pretty awesome if that was the case. To get those things, I believe you need to have a level of consecration.
I like that thought a lot. Yeah, that's interesting. So, Joe, we talked. I want to circle back for a second because we talked about your grandpa a little bit. We talked about your dad. We've mentioned your mom. We've talked about some people, but one of the things that Mike and I have tried to make a point of in this show is honoring those people that have impacted our lives, and we certainly. I can tell by the way that you speak of, especially your grandfather and your father, and that you honor them. But is there anyone else that we'd love to give you the time right now to talk about those people that have impacted you that you'd like to honor here on this show?
What comes to mind is a good friend of mine, Jeff, another shipmate that's since retired. I met him in Hawaii, and that's where my eldest was born. And I have a picture of him feeding my son. And fast forward 16 years later, I have a picture of him feeding my 1-year-old now. But he's been through with me a lot of dark times of my life. Even after Japan, and for a time, my eldest and I lived with him for a number of years, and he is always still a very good confidant, as well as I would say mentor, and in a lot of ways. Just how he views the world and how he shares that, and even calling me on on some things that when I might be out of sorts. He knows me well enough to even say, "Hey, Joe, what about this?" And I think that is something that I was been needing, is a sounding board.
Yeah,
and even a gut check. I think we all need someone to, in a way, bring us to some sense of accountability in this life. And since being remarried, I of course can't say goodbye or end this episode of the podcast without mentioning my wife and the joy that she's brought to my life, and everything she's done to definitely make my life better.
So can I want to kind of pick up on that. Early on, you talked about teenagers and diapers, and I just made a note, and it's like, I gotta circle back to that. What is that experience teaching you right now? What is life with a teenager and was it a 1-year-old?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's 1 now.
I'm dying to know what Joe Elkins is learning from life right now.
Oh man, it's been life is great. Could I tell a quick story about how my youngest came to be? Well, besides being married. Anyway, Logan, the oldest, he wanted to have his 16th birthday party at my friend Jeff's house, but he wanted to do in the tradition of a YouTube show called Hot Ones, which is an interview show where they have 10 questions, but the interviewee and the guests eat progressively hotter hot ones.
Okay, I've heard of this. Yeah.
And it's a fabulous show. I mean, they have guests of celebrities that you may know or may not know, whatever. Well, that's what Logan wanted to do for her 16th. And my wife is 9 months pregnant, and we want to participate. So it's the day before Logan's birthday. That's when the party was. And we're having these hot ones, and I participate too. And I'm typically not someone that has hot sauce, but I went for it and had a good time. And I look over at my bride, and she's glowing, and it's not just the hot sauce or being pregnant. We completed that, and we're in the hospital that night.
Oh man, really?
And they send us home and say, "Hey, it's just pre-labor. The child may be coming. Whatever. Go home, lay in this position." And they give us the times like contractions and how strong they are and far apart and everything. We're excited anyway because we're having a baby. And anyway, we're back in the hospital on Logan's birthday.
Wow. On
the oldest birthday. And our son Colwyn was born on the same day as his older brother.
Oh, get out of here.
Same day. And
what's your wife's name?
Rebecca.
How did you and Rebecca meet?
Oh, okay. We got to go back to 2016. My last assignment with the Navy. The Navy decided to send me overseas in the Middle East. And I know I wasn't too happy about that. For me, it didn't make sense because I only had like 2 years before I retire. Why would they send me over there? It just didn't make sense. So, and besides that, I'm leaving my son. So this really made me mad. And, but regardless, there's a reason why I'm going. I'll just go ahead and hit the I believe button and go. So we go, I go. I leave my son, say goodbye, and give him a hug, and I leave. Anyway, I get to the new command, and I got introduced to the department and the shop that I was going to be working in, and plenty of people there, and I started this workout group, and I invited my entire department. Say, hey, come work out in the mornings. Now, granted, Rebecca decided after some prodding, decided to join my group, and everybody had a good time. She was dating someone overseas as well, so everything was safe. It turned out that people started, as assignments changed within the command, people stopped coming, understandably, until it was just her and I, and which made things kind of interesting because we worked in the same place, so we had to be careful and cautious about it. We don't want bad perceptions. Anyway, we got to know each other. We got to know each other a lot, which is really nice. She's a really good person. I'm very, very impressed with who she is and what she's about, and her drive to serve and everything like that. We started hanging out a little bit, inviting everybody, but no one else would show up. Like we learned to scuba dive. Invited the shop, say, hey, let's go learn to scuba dive. Well, she was the only one that came, but we invited everybody. Fast forward a little bit, she was having problems with her dude. And then fast forward a little bit more, and then she had to redeploy back to the United States for some training, and she eventually transferred to the back home. And so I'm like, okay, well, and we still kept in touch. Finally, it's my time to retire, so I'm checking out from being overseas and fly home, which I get to reunite with my son that I haven't seen in a year, which is a pretty neat story in itself. We surprised him thanks to my wonderful sisters.
Wait. So like literally like one of those videos that makes me cry every time on Facebook, like you have a surprise he doesn't know about?
That's make me cry every time.
They get me every time, man.
Yeah. Well, my eldest sister, she thought I was going to come home like 6 months before I actually did. So she had things set up with Knott's Berry Farm and their tree lighting ceremony, and then I would be there somehow. But I got delayed. I was able to come home a couple days before Logan's 14th birthday. So his 14th birthday. But my sister called Dodger Stadium, talked to their public relations department, and set it up to where there's a tour that my family, no one knew except my sisters that I was coming home, but they set up a tour of Dodger Stadium. And that was going to be part of Logan's birthday, was to do that tour. And I was there. And at the end of the tour, you're in the Dodger dugout, and then I got there a little bit early, so I got to see them from afar. Like, okay. And then they interviewed me a little bit. I'm getting nervous. I'm in my uniform. And then they come down, or they tell me where they're at, and they escort me to where the Dodgers go to get into the dugout, and I can hear them. You had to have me tell the story. It gets me. Anyway, they call Logan up, and that was my cue. I come around the corner. And I could all I'm focused on is my son. I've missed him so much. And I hear screams of my mom. My dad was upset. Good upset, but
right.
I'm just holding on to my son. I've missed him so much. Pardon me. Anyway, so this teenager didn't know how to react. His dad's sobbing. his grandma's sobbing, his grandpa, he's probably is sobbing. So we go around and we give hugs and everything like that. I couldn't help but just hold on to that boy. Anyway, it was a good experience. And he to this day, he says it was his best birthday he ever had. We'll see in about 20 years. Now, if he ever goes on the service, I know if he goes on deployment, I better watch out. Anyway.
Well, hey, is there video footage of this?
We've been trying to get that. We've been trying to get that.
It's amazing. I'm like,
I just think I think life just gives you little glimpses of what heaven's going to be like.
Oh yeah.
And that's why that tears me up every time.
Yeah.
Like the love and the sacrifice and the commitment and the service, and there's just so many beautiful things in those experiences, and that's really the only way life packages all those good things into an experience like that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, Joe, long overdue, but I just want to thank you for your service to this country.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that we hear that journey of a kid who goes in, right? And you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other one. You don't know what that other one looks like. You're just going in as a young kid. I think your words were you want to do something different.
Yeah.
And here you are, 20 plus years of service to this country. And I marvel at that. I marvel at a life dedicated to principles, right? And we know them to be true principles. We know this country to be founded upon true principles, and we know that God's hand was in the development of this country, and this country stands as a unique place in the world, and we really do appreciate your service in defending that.
I'm just happy to do that for friends and family and my fellow countrymen. Well, did you want me to finish how my wife?
Yes.
Back to Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Okay. No. Anyway, I think it was 2018. So fast forward a couple of years. Her and I had been talking, and still haven't seen each other in a few years. And she wanted to fly out here for Thanksgiving. So I'm like, okay, well, yeah, love to see you. So she flies out, and it's like, because she had gotten out of the military, so we're both civilians at that time. We're like, this is nice. This is really nice. And the great thing about Rebecca, that I kind of knew when we were hanging out in Bahrain, is that we just were. I mean, everything was comfortable, though. Given the nature of our work and our professional side of business, kind of didn't allow for exploration, let's just say. Right. There was a level of comfort there that was really nice. And then when she came out to visit, when we were both civilians, that level of comfort was almost confirming. It was like, this person, I feel comfortable with this person to a point where I don't want this person far from me. So we had, we had a lot of really cool discussions. I mean, I showed her the sights of San Diego. I think I brought her to church, and then she was out here for about 5 days. And then she flew back to Virginia, and she decided she wanted to move out here, to be close. And I wasn't going to say no. So I was like, I really like this girl. I really love this girl. So I talked it over with Logan about what we should do about this. And we just, I took Logan with me to the jewelers, and we got a ring. Oh,
wow.
Now, she was going to move out here. And I suggested, I'm like, hey, that's a long drive to do by yourself. Why don't I fly out and drive with you? And she goes, yeah, that'd be great. I go, I do have one caveat. I go, this is an opportunity for me to see some of the sites through church history. through my church history. Would it be okay if we took a little detour on the way back to San Diego? She's like, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be fine. She's not a member of the church, but she's been knowing a lot about it, and she got to know a lot on the drive. So anyway, she's from Pennsylvania, and I fly into Philadelphia. Beautiful place. I mean, I love history. What better place to learn some history than to go to Philadelphia, especially the history of this country. So I had two plans. First plan is the Rocky Steps.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with the Rocky Steps.
Can't go wrong.
The Rocky Steps. I mean, right there at the Philadelphia Art Museum. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's got to be done.
The second one, plan B was touring Independence Hall. And then when I've never done it before, but I had a feeling that at the end of the tour, they say, does anybody have any questions? And then pop down right there. That was
that's a great plan too. Those are great plans.
Right.
And the irony of getting engaged at Independence Hall is great too, right?
Thank you. I'm glad.
I just want to point out that was Tyler, not Mike.
I'll edit that out. Don't worry.
No. Keep that. Okay. Keep that, because I had that thought in mind, because had I done the plan B, I have that joke for the rest of the time.
Yeah,
that's right.
So the day came that we're going to go to the Philadelphia Art Museum. We're really enjoying each other's company. We're in love. I mean, it's snowing outside. It warmed up from the day before. It warmed up to 19 degrees.
Balmy.
But there's a big difference between 9 degrees and 19 degrees. Just saying.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, the difference is your eyebrows, your eyelids work.
She's in the car, and I go, hey, let me see your phone real quick. And we're at the hotel, and I take the phone, I do a video, and I give her a message saying, hey, thank you for, something along the lines of thank you for sharing this time with me and showing me your city. And right now we're hopefully looking over downtown Philadelphia on this beautiful day. And when you're ready, turn around. And I left it at that. So, and I give her the phone. She's like, well, what's going on? What are you doing? And I go, do you trust me? He goes, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, let's go to the museum. So we're driving there, and I'm looking at the GPS because I don't know why. I don't know the proximity between the hotel and the museum is. So I keep looking at, I think I gave some of the stuff away because I'm looking at the GPS, I'm looking at sites, and I may have been tapping my foot because, or doing some nervous tick or whatever, because she asked me, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. I knew that if she said yes, my life was going to change. And all the thoughts in my mind started going off, like the joy, but also the lessons I learned from Logan's mother as well, and how I can appropriately apply those lessons to a yes answer. So I'm excited and scared at the same time, because I don't want, and no one wants a repeat of things that weren't ideal. When we get to the museum, and right there, I'm thinking, I need about 3 weeks just on the museum alone, because there's so much there. I mean, we toured everything. I mean, they had a whole medieval armory. They had art from different ages. I mean, this is.
But
beautiful.
Did you run up the stairs?
I'm getting there. Slow down.
All right, come on. I'm dying to know, man.
So we go on the outside, and they had moved the statue of Rocky Balboa down off to, I believe it's the north side near the stairs. And we got a picture there. It's snowing outside, so it's cold. And we go across it, and I don't know if you've seen it if you remember the movie Rocky, it's like a traffic circle. Mm-hmm. That's right in front of it. And we went in the traffic circle, and I turn to my right, and I see the steps. I'm like, there it is. But we go to the different structures that's in that traffic circle, and it's beautiful. And I'm still just kind of looking back at those steps, going, there it is. My heart starts racing at that point. So finally we're like, okay, well, let's go up the steps. Why not? We got to do it. We're here. we weren't going to run because of the ice, but we walked up there, we made it safely, and we turned around, we looked at the beautiful panoramic that we have. Though it was hazy and it was snowing, it was cold, it was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous day. And I go, hey, do you still have your phone? And she goes, yeah. I goes, okay, well, there's something on there. Why don't you look at over there? And I could barely hear my the video, but she's looking over our view, and then I hear myself say on the video, when you're ready, turn around. And I'm there, and I go, I'm on a knee, and I go, I love you. It's the first time I ever said that to her. And I go, will you marry me? Her reaction was pretty epic. If you get to know Rebecca, you know that's kind of what never happened to her before, obviously. But yeah, she cried and said, I love you back. I'm like, well, yes or no? And she said yes, and put the ring on her finger. Hugs, kisses, and applause. We got some applause, which was great. So it was pretty good.
You had a little gallery watching?
Oh, there was like a couple of families off to the right. And remember, it's like snowing and cold, so probably like other tourists.
That's doing it.
I think magic always happens on the rocky stairs, man.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know that there's ever been a bad moment on the rocky stairs. Now, don't quote me on that. I don't need Philadelphia people calling me with the history of bad things.
And they will.
That's right. Our complete Philadelphia is strong.
And after that, we went to Blaze Pizza. Had some pizza.
I love it, man.
And then we had to call her folks. And
let them in on it. Yeah,
let them in. And
I love that story, and I love how real it was. I can only imagine what was bouncing around in your head, right? I mean, I've had that moment where the ring is in my sweaty hand, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And I can appreciate you having those thoughts and wanting to do it right.
Yeah. Wanting to do it right. Though some may argue with me, but Rebecca and I know we did it right for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's been great. And you know what? I have to tell you, the marriage I have with this woman is unreal. How she treats me as being her companion is just amazing. It's I can't say enough about her. She makes me a better person.
That is the ultimate segue. Almost like Joe, almost like we scripted it, right? Because as we wrap up our time together, it is about that rich life, right? It is about Harry Bailey at the end of the movie lifting a glass and toasting his big brother George as the richest man in town. And Tyler and I, we love that moment because of the irony, because of the journey that George had been on that had led him to that, where just earlier he was on a bridge praying that he wanted to live, and that everything that was driving him crazy about his life was now gilded and beautiful. So we have this little podcast project, and we bring in people that we admire, and we get into their life. And Joe, we so appreciate the time that you gave us and the glimpse into that life. So we ask you this question, Joe: what does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
I've anticipated this question, through the episodes that I've listened to, and you guys and your audience have been blessed with some wonderful answers, wonderful, unique answers, and that are gems that I hope the greater audience takes into their life and try to apply. And as I ponder this, I reflected on my own life, where I'm at, and how I got to get to be where I'm at. I wake up rather early, and through a couple of posts on the town, I'm joined with a couple of people, early risers, and it came on me. It goes, living your life in such a way that when the dawn breaks, or you open your eyes to a new day. You can look around and just smile. That's what it makes me warm. I mean, I wake up, I look at my beautiful bride. I go in, I see my 1-year-old now anticipating me coming in. And when his older brother's here, I get to walk to his room and put my hand in and flip on the light to get him to get up. And it just makes me smile.
I love that answer, Joe. I love that answer, because I think that, you know, there's something that's powerful in just recognizing the good that's around you, you know. And I think that when we have a grateful heart, and we have a disposition to look for the blessings that are in our lives, we can't help but smile, right? Even given the path that we may have walked, even given the hardships that we may be in the middle of right now, you know. I mean, that I think that's the beautiful thing about this show, is that we have great discussions with all kinds of people. We've had a great discussion with you tonight. And I think that I want people to know that there's richness in the hard things, right? There's richness in a life riddled with errors, as we talked about earlier, right? There's richness no matter what, right? We could be in the middle of the storm, but boy, we have some things to smile about. And I love that answer of just being able to open your eyes and look around and have a smile on your face. And
I love it because it almost feels like an intentional practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It almost feels like, hey, are you struggling out there? Just try that.
Yeah.
Try that tomorrow, because it really does feel like the way Joe presented that. It really feels like that's a choice, right? We choose to look around and realize that all of it. And I love the inclusiveness, right? Everything that you see.
Yeah. Everything
that you see is worthy of a smile. Right. And like the relationships that we have, and the blessings that we have, and the comforts that we enjoy, and just the people in our lives that we have, and the experiences that we carry with us into each and every day, with that dawn, and having the ability to just smile and be like, here we go. Right. I love it.
I love it. And I will say, you know, I'm grateful for the time tonight, Joe. I mean, it's been fun, and you know, I've loved our conversation. This will be one of those things, you know, that I'll hold on to and reflect on, and it'll be one of my things that I smile about, because this has been it's been a good night tonight, and I appreciate you being here. I'm grateful for you. I am, and I mean that. It's been great.
Oh, it's my honor to be in your guys' in a quorum of rich individuals.
Well, I just say, Tyler, you know how to pick them. And I think that I've been edified. And I think that as I've heard and kind of lived a little bit of Joe's experience, I really honestly feel like we have a couple more hours.
Yeah, I know, right?
I just love Heavenly Father's plan. Like, I just love the idea of this life. And I love the variables and the obstacles, and I'm going to go here into this building. I'm going to feel like home. And I bet as you were talking about how it was meeting Rebecca and how it felt easy, right? And you could have labeled that home, right? Yeah. And it could have been like, I kind of felt as I'm hanging out with her, like I felt when I walked into that building in Japan, you know. And it's like, if we chase that feeling, if everyone listening, our millions minus millions, could just hone in on what that feels like and chase it, it's going to lead you to great places, and it's going to lead you to do some amazing things in your life and in the lives of the people you come in contact with. Just chase that feeling, right? Because I think it's innate in us. I really do. Yeah. I love it.
I do too. Joe, it's been great, man. We love you. We appreciate you. And, you know, we appreciate you giving us a couple hours and being part of of our family, because we got more time to spend with you at some point. So we, that phone will be ringing again. We appreciate you.
Yeah, let's put a pin in part 2 and come back.
Well, we appreciate you, Joe. Have a good night. Tell Rebecca we said thank you for sacrificing her time with you tonight, and tell Logan and the boys that we said hi.
I will.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. Good night.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.